The Bill Simmons podcast brought to you by SeatGeek, our presenting sponsor since 1973. The NBA and NHL seasons in full swing. SeatGeek, smartest, easiest way to get tickets to your favorite team's games. Buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps on your phone. Everything fully guaranteed. I found out this week that my mom uses SeatGeek to buy opera tickets, and which is amazing because she's the technologically most inefficient person that I know and loves SeatGeek and gets great deals. They have a revolutionary grading system. Try it out. Download the SeatGeek app today or go right to SeatGeek.com. We were also brought to you by the Ringer NBA show. I went on there yesterday, Monday, with Chris Vernon and broke down the Boogie Cousins trade for 56 action-packed, thrilling minutes, and made the case that it was, as unbelievable as it seems, the best possible deal they could have made since there were no other real suitors. Check that out, the Ringer NBA show. Subscribe now. And obviously we're brought to you by the Ringer, where you can read my column every Friday, including the trade deadline on Thursday. I'm sure I'll have something on Friday. And it's one of the reasons we have this guy here, because I'm fascinated by what it's like for a player as the trade deadline approaches. JJ Redick coming up right now. JJ Redick. You were traded at the trade deadline once.
Yeah, 2:59 p.m.
2:59 p.m.
A minute to spare.
Did you know you were going to get traded that week, or did you think there was a chance? Like, what's the process? Are you just refreshing the internet all the time? What are you doing?
It was weird because going back to the summer before, we had a new coach, Jacques Vaughn. We had a new GM, Rob Hennigan. So I met with Rob that summer, and I was just like, hey, man, if you can just kind of keep me in the loop as things are happening. I was an expiring deal at the time. I think it was like a $6.2 million expiring deal, which at the time, with the salary cap was a typical sort of contract that would get traded, especially in a rebuilding situation like we were in. So like with a month to go before the deadline, Rob and I talked, and I was like, I would like to be here. I'd like to kind of see this rebuild through. And he said, all right, I think that's an option for us too. Then with about like a week to go, I knew there were a few teams, Milwaukee, Detroit.
You guys weren't playing that well either.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
We were terrible that year. San Antonio was another team. So there's like a few teams that were interested in me. We were in Dallas the day of the trade deadline, and we decided to stay over. So we're sitting at the hotel, and Arn Tellem, my agent at the time, called me, and he's like, you're safe. You're not getting dealt.
Oh, no.
And I said, great. So I get on the bus. We get to the airport. As soon as we get to the airport, there's always 2 buses. First bus is the player's bus, coach's bus. We always get off first. For some reason, they let the other bus off, which is like the training staff, Fox Sports people. So they're getting on the plane first. I'm like, this is a little weird. And then as the players started getting off the bus, they kind of just started holding guys back. It was like Josh McRoberts, Ish Smith, Gustavo Ayan. And I was like, fuck, something's going down. And Arn called me, like, as I'm waiting there as one of 4 guys, and he's like, it's looking like Milwaukee. And then literally at 2:59 p.m. Eastern time, Rob called me and said, hey, we just traded you to Milwaukee. And so it was a nerve-wracking week leading up, and then it was a nerve-wracking sort of 24 hours. And even when you feel safe as a player, you're still – I'm not like refreshing my Google alerts, but like you're still on Hoops Hype, you're still on Twitter, like trying to figure out, is there anything going on? You're talking to your agent just about every day, which I'll continue to do this week. And it's nerve-wracking now.
So you knew a couple years ago, there was a better chance you might get traded than like this trade deadline. But you're still in the mix. Like, you can't feel 100% safe. Who knows?
I don't think I've ever felt 100% safe.
Yeah. Well, the first year with the Clippers, you must have felt safe because Doc was building a whole offense around you running off picks and stuff.
My first year with the Clippers, I was hurt. I broke my wrist earlier in the year. When I came back, I played about 10 games. Then I had a back injury. So I was out at the deadline. That day, similar situation. We were on the plane. I can't remember where we were headed, but we were on the plane, and we're all in the players' cabin refreshing Twitter. And there's this like trade that's supposed to go down between a few of our guys and a few of the Knicks guys centered around Iman Shumpert. And It's like we're getting real-time info from, the Mark Steins and the Wojs of the world. And Doc's like 30 feet away on the phone. It was the most surreal thing ever. Ultimately, there weren't any major trades. I think we dumped B.J. Mullins and Jamison in sort of salary dump, but there wasn't a major trade.
Is it weird that Doc? Is it weird as a player that Doc is your coach, but is also the guy who's ultimately going to have final say on who gets traded?
It is. It's a weird thing. I felt like the first probably 2 years. It was a little different. He's surrounded himself now in the front office with a lot of great people, and Lawrence Frank is up there now. And he's, I guess, sort of the de facto guy now, and he's taken some of the responsibility off Doc. But I had never experienced that before, so it was definitely surreal those first couple years.
So if he yells at you in practice, you're like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go on the trade machine."
No, it's interesting. I mean, that's ultimately like why we have the judicial system and the legislative branch and the executive branch is checks and balances.
Right.
So you need people like around you if you're going to take on that role, like a few guys have in this league, like Bud and Pop and Tibbs. Like if you're going to have that role, you need good people around you.
So Carmelo, it comes out that Carmelo might get dealt, and that it's only the Clippers, the Cavs, or the Celtics. And everybody, just including myself, just starts making up trades left and right. And with the Clippers, it's like they for whatever reason, they're on the record saying we wouldn't trade any DeAndre, Chris, or Blake for Carmelo. That's off the table. I don't even know how that got reported, but somehow that became fact. I don't know where it came from. So then everybody's looking at like the Rivers contract, Jamal Crawford,
My name got thrown in there.
There's not a lot of contracts that can add up to what it would take to get Carmelo back. So are you aware? Because you're trying to play. You're playing 4 games a week, basically. Are you aware of all this as it's going on, or you're trying to tune it out?
You're trying to tune it out. But at this point, to have your name in a trade rumor, you've learned by now that until you actually get the call, hey, you've been traded, it really doesn't matter. It's like worrying about a hypothetical. You just can't get caught up in that. But it's hard not to be aware. We were playing in Golden State. The week, sort of those few days when this was like heavy in the news, this Clippers Knicks thing, and I'm going out for warm-ups before the game with like 50 on the clock doing my shooting routine, and I have like 4 Warriors fans. I hope you like it in New York. You're out of here, Redick. So
trying to pretend you're not listening to them.
But I mean, you can't really tune that out when they're 10 feet away from you.
Right. Well, I mean, how many years have you been in the Clippers now? 4?
This is my 4th year, yeah.
And this has been this run where it never all came together. Every year there's been a hiccup or a stumble, and the best chance you had was that Rockets series when you're up, 25 in Game 5, and it looks like it's done. I went to that game. The Rockets were Harden checked out. He was
19.
Done. Or 19, whatever
19.
it was.
It was Game 6, but it was 19, yeah.
Was it Game 6 or Game 5?
It was Game 6. Because we went back to Houston
you
for
could have
Game
won
5.
Game.
They had home court.
Yeah.
So we had Game 6 at our place. Blake made a 360 layup in the third quarter, and I remember looking over at the bench, and everybody's celebrating, and I'm like, oh, it's a party in here, and then they bench Harden in the fourth quarter.
Harden checked out. I love Harden. I'm a huge Harden defender, but he checked out in that game.
It was the Josh Smith and Corey Brewer game. But even like last year and this year, if I'm being honest, it's tough to evaluate our team,
right?
Because that our 4-man group and then Luke as well, like our net rating is as good as any 5-man unit, I think, except for the Warriors. And so to sort of evaluate us when we're healthy is one thing, but we've just had Chris and Blake have just been in and out of the lineup. And then, of course, last year in the playoffs, they're gone after the third or fourth quarter of Game 4. So,
what do you think was the best Clippers team of all those of the 4 you've been on? Or what did you feel like was the highest ceiling team?
Probably the first 2 years. And the first year we lost to OKC. We had a chance to win Game 5 at their place. Game 6 at home. It was a kind of a devastating loss in Game 5. We were up, I think, 11 with like 4 minutes to go. We lose. Game 6, I didn't even realize this till I watched the game a couple of years ago, but we were up like 19 in the first half.
Yeah.
And Kevin Durant had an unbelievable second quarter. He came back and they beat us. But that was before the Warriors were the Warriors.
Yeah.
San Antonio ended up winning that year. So that, I'm not saying we would have beat San Antonio in the next round, but that was a chance for us. And then the following year was before the Warriors were this juggernaut. They were really good. They won 67 games. They won it all. But I still think that year in the conference finals, we would have had a shot against them.
We had beaten them the year before.
We'd beaten them
nice.
In the playoffs the year before.
Which actually turned out to be the best thing that happened to them. They went through that Game 7, and I don't know. They got good Game 7. This is what it's like reps that I think really helped them the next year. The problem with the year after, I thought your best team was the year that Houston knocked you out, just because of how well Blake was playing.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the best I've ever seen Blake play. I remember writing at the time, I thought he was that spring the third best player in the league. And he's never, whether injuries, whatever, it feels like it's starting to come back for him. But I like the way you matched up with the team. The problem is the bench. He had to play everybody so many minutes, like the top 6. And I really thought that Game 6 against Houston, that's when it wore out. Blake was dead in the second half.
Blake
of that
and I
game.
talked about that.
Yeah.
Going back to the first round series, we had a 7-game
Spurs, brutal.
slugfest with the Spurs, which was as tough a series as I've played in my career. And Blake and I have talked about this, but I remember in Game 7 in Houston in the fourth quarter, like coming out of a timeout, and at the time it was maybe like a 7 or 8 point game, and just being like, "Oh my God, I have
just done
nothing in the tank."
Yeah.
And after the game, I talked to Blake. He's like, "I felt the same way." He's like, "Neither of us had ever really felt that before. You just feel like you have nothing left physically in the tank."
Well, for you, that's murder because you need your legs to.
Yeah,
you're running around.
It was tough for me that
screens.
series too because I was tasked. I was the main guy tasked with guarding Harden, so I had to guard Harden and then also run circles on offense.
Right. And guarding Harden is basically
every play.
You just kind of try to get in his way as he does his crazy stuff.
There's a strategy to it, but it doesn't work very well. He's pretty damn good.
Is he your biggest nightmare to guard? Or you don't want to give anybody the...
We have Luke now, so the last 2 years Luke has matched up.
Because I don't imagine even how... First of all, all the other stuff he does, the fact that he's lefty... Mm-hmm. I always feel like the lefties are the most... My dad is like the all-time fan of lefties. He feels like as guys get tired, you kind of just forget. Like there'll be some brain fart where you're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot he's..." And he's already going by you. Yeah. But he's so unconventional. I don't know how you would stop it.
Yeah, the only other guy that was like him was Ginobili in his prime.
Right.
And those are two of the toughest guys that I've had to guard in my career. I've had to guard Kobe and Dwayne Wade, my position, and those guys in their prime were unbelievable. But there is something about the quirkiness of Ginobili and Harden's game that is really challenging.
Yeah, I remember when Harden got traded, I remember writing something about he could be the Manu on this OKC team. And like his destiny is like kind of a better version of Manu. I never expected him to be what he became. I don't think there were... He was clearly good.
Yeah, I don't think many people did.
I never would have guessed he was going to be one of the 5 best guys in the league.
It's weird because it seemed like at the time it was a great role for him in OKC, like where he starred in that role. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Like he was a star in his role, and then he became a top 3 player within the span of 2 years.
He was such a weapon because he could just win a game by himself potentially, or they didn't need him at all.
Yeah.
And Durant and Westbrook could do it. It's funny because you've had these Clipper seasons where it's just like the bad luck season, or oh man, why? But yet in Orlando in 2009 it was the opposite. It was like everything could go right all the way to the finals thing where it just kind of came together perfectly. So you felt that too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say everything went right because Jameer was an All-Star that year, and he got hurt right before the All-Star game. He tore his labrum and had surgery.
Good point.
And we picked up Ray for Alston. I always like to say, like, our rotation that year was Ray for Alston, Courtney Lee, Turk, Rashard Dwight, and then off the bench was Anthony Johnson, myself, Pietrus, and Gortat. Like, that was the team that got us to the finals. Yeah, it was. I
mean, it's 9 deep at least.
Yeah, it was a deep team. Garnett was hurt that year. Which Pierce likes to remind me of on a daily basis.
That was the best Celtics team. I think they were like 35-5 when KG got hurt.
Yeah,
something like that. It was a great team.
And then the first game one against Cleveland, we're down like 22 in the first half.
Yeah.
That place is so loud. And I'm thinking, oh God, we don't have we don't have a shot against these guys. We won that game, and really just like we played unbelievable that series. Then we had honestly we had some bad luck in the finals though. I mean, Courtney Lee missed a layup that could have sent or won it at the end of regulation in game 2. Game 4 broke our backs. We're up 87-82 with 40 seconds to go, and Dwight at the free throw line. Somehow that game goes to overtime and we lose it.
Well, you had the Derek Fisher 3 was the moment.
3.
I don't know. I think it was Jameer. Somebody didn't come out on him in time.
It was Jameer.
Yeah.
I love Jameer, but it was Jameer.
That was a tough one. Jameer is now having his third renaissance in Denver.
Oh, he's great.
He's like kicking ass. He's like my age.
He can play, man. He can play.
Yeah, I think that Lakers Magic series was way closer and way more dangerous for the Lakers than anyone seems to remember now, which happens sometimes. Like Jalen and I used to talk about the 2000 finals, the Lakers' first championship.
That was the Philly one?
It was Indiana versus
Indiana. Yeah, it was Indiana. I remember watching
in Indiana.
That
it was way close. It was 2-2, or it was 2-1. But then it goes into overtime. Game 4 in Indy. Shaq fouls out. Kobe has to put the team on his back. It was the first time he'd ever done it.
Yeah.
The game 6 was super close. Jalen still feels like the officials robbed them. But yeah, the 09 Magic. LeBron was at the peak of his early powers in that series. I think he was like 37 and 12 or something.
It was like 37,
crazy
12,
numbers.
and 8. It was
every time,
every game too. It was consistently.
He played well.
But
that team he had around him, you could just the Dwight thing was. I mean, that's about as good as Dwight's been in terms of rebounding, blocking shots, not caring if you're running plays for him. He's just doing all the stuff that you'd ever want from Dwight in a playoff series.
And still averaged like 25. Like he was so good, he didn't have to have plays called for him. We could just run that spread pick and roll, surround him with shooters, and it worked. It's
interesting that DeAndre has embraced what Dwight never totally embraced, which is like just rebound and block shots and dunk alley-oops and set picks, and you're a devastating center. But if we're posting you up, now you're hurting us because you're not a great post-up player, and we have better offensive players around you. Doc came in and just immediately was like, DeAndre, this is how we're using you. And he embraced it.
It's been a good sort of working partnership between Doc and DJ. I mean, the year before Doc came, DJ didn't play in the fourth quarters.
Oh, yeah.
He averaged like 24, 25 minutes a game, something like that. I mean, he always, I guess, showed potential, from afar, from a distance, watching the Clippers play. He's got potential, but 3 years later, he's first team All-NBA. He's on the Olympic team. Now he's an All-Star 4 years later.
I think he's been terrific this season. I was saying, I said a couple weeks ago, I think he's the most underrated player in the league now.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I don't think people realize how good he's been and what just a consistent force he is. And it's also the way the league has shifted. There's not a lot of big guys left who can stay out there and do all the things he can do without hurting their team in some way. Like, I think Detroit's really struggled with Drummond. Like, how do we use this guy? How do we use the good parts of him and cover up the parts that aren't as good?
I think for maybe an old school traditional NBA fan, guys like DJ and Drummond are frustrating to them because you can't just throw them the ball on the block and they go score. That's just not who they are. But in today's NBA, those guys are as valuable as anybody. The guys that are true fives, defend the rim, are mobile enough to get out and cover pick and rolls, and then offensively they just roll to the rim every time. I mean, that's really the value, because shooting is valued, and then you need a big guy who rolls and has that threat of a lob to create space for shooting.
That's why I like Nerlens Noel if he can stay in the court. There was like this 2-week window where I thought the Celtics were going to steal him, and he would have been awesome with Isaiah. Like, imagine covering Isaiah and Nerlens Noel on a high screen and roll, and he's never been in that situation. But now Philly knows that he's good. They're not trading him.
It's going to be interesting though, because he has a lot of value, and there's a lot of teams that could really, really use him, and he could end up being a star, like in the same way that DJ is.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is the last dance for the Clips? You feel like everybody's on this team next year? Because, Blake is a free agent. If Chris is a free agent, you're a free agent, and because of all the injuries,
nothing would surprise me. I mean, if you told me that 4 years from now, like we're all still playing together, I'd be like, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, if you told me that one of us leave, two of us leave, I could see that happening too. I think a lot of it does depend on what happens in the playoffs, and that's ultimately, where we've been judged and where we'll be judged at the end of the season.
It's not going to be as easy this year because of all the injuries. You're going to be a 5 or a 6 seed probably.
Yeah,
which means you got to go on the road.
It's going to be tough. I mean, we'd love to get in that 3rd seed, but I think we're four back in the loss column, 3 or 4 back in the loss column with Houston right now. We're battling right now for 1st round home court.
You need injuries on a team that's not your team. You need you've had most of the bad luck.
Can Harden have an ankle injury?
Yeah,
nothing serious. Nothing serious.
Ankle.
I would never wish a serious injury on anyone, or like mono or something, like a 2-week mono bout.
The Rockets are fascinating to me because they need to make one more trade. They need one more perimeter guy, and if they get that guy, and I don't know who it is, then I think you and your team and the Rockets are the 2 teams that could game the system against the Warriors a little bit. You
don't think the Spurs?
Well, the Spurs are the Spurs. I would never. I think the Spurs, they're over here. They can obviously go toe to toe. The Rockets can just kind of shoot threes and get hard and hot and just be funky and unconventional. And then you guys, you've played the Warriors so many times. There's a familiarity that I think is a real
I feel
advantage.
like right now there's a familiarity with us getting our asses kicked.
Well, that's been recent.
They've completely dominated us. I think we won, 2 seasons ago on Christmas Day.
You haven't had your whole team,
and
though.
haven't beaten them since.
Yeah, I was surprised. There was a Thursday night game about a month ago that there was not a lot of fight in the Clippers. And
was that the game at Golden State, or was that the home game?
It was the home game.
The home game. Yeah.
There was no fight, and that made me think
it was the high scoring one. We scored a lot, but I think the Warriors had like 128 offensive efficiency night or something like that.
Yeah. When's Chris come back?
Soon. Sooner than people realize. Breaking news. No, he'll be back very soon.
It turns out that when Chris Paul is out there, it's probably better for you guys. That's one of my expert opinions. Yeah. It's nice to have the best point guard of the league on your team.
It's nice to have, one of the 5 to 10 best players in the world.
You could argue that you survived. This could have been worse.
I think we did fine. Blake, the first game back, I think, was the Philly game. At Philly, we lost.
Yeah.
Blake was, getting his rhythm. Since that game, he's been unbelievable. I mean, I don't know what his numbers are.
About it. Yeah.
I don't know what his numbers are, but if I had to guess, 27, 8, and 5.
Yeah.
26, 9, and 5. I mean, he's been unbelievable the last 7 or 8 games.
And he's also trying to dunk on people again. Mm-hmm. I feel like his swagger is back. His basketball swagger is back a little bit. And it was gone from the hand injury last year. And even when he, last year just cross off. But this year, I didn't feel like he was totally Blake. And now I feel like, oh, man, this guy's starting to look like the guy from 2015.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's why. Back, but a lot of it, I think you're right. A lot of it is injuries, and I think part of it too was when he came back from the hand injury. First of all, he wasn't right. His quad tendon wasn't right. But there was that hand. What happened with the hand injury and what happened in Toronto? I think that kind of hung over him a little bit.
Yeah,
and it affected his. Not necessarily his psyche, but maybe his demeanor. Where
he took a ton of shit for it.
He couldn't be himself, you know. And I just feel like he's gotten over that. He's back to being who he is.
Yeah. Did we ever figure out why the other teams don't like him? What's your take on that? There's a couple guys every year that the other teams are just like they just seem like they try to fuck with him, and it's been that way with Blake for 5 years.
I feel like there's a few guys on our team that are like that.
I mean, you had that going back to college, right?
Yeah.
Guys trying to chip you and cheap shot you and elbow you coming off picks, trying to get you off your game.
I feel like I brought that on myself. So a little bit of that is just like guys bring that on themselves. Like, I've said this before, and like I love them to death. But like Chris Paul does not shut up. Like,
Right.
he's just talking all the time. And so, I think if you're playing against him, you're like, oh my God, like what
You just want to swat him.
Yeah. So it can rub you the wrong way.
I think that is the biggest flaw of the Clippers. If you get everybody back and you're healthy, on paper, this is the best Clippers team. Just because you have a better bench.
Yeah.
The bitching to the refs, you don't do it as much. But it starts with Doc.
I don't think I have a technical this year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Boogie has like 18.
Yeah.
But
I've made it. Well, knock on wood.
it's if I'm a referee and I'm like, oh, get the Clippers Wednesday night. This is gonna suck. And Doc's gonna be yelling at me from the first minute. Chris is gonna be yelling at me all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to officiate Blake. Blake's like the hardest guy in the league to figure out whether it was a flagrant or just a conventional foul. And I'm just, this is gonna suck.
Right.
That would be my attitude as the ref.
I have to be very careful when discussing anything regarding the referees, but I would just say they're human beings.
Yes,
they're human beings with feelings. They're sensitive, just like any other human being, and
they take stuff
I think
personally.
I think you want to be treated with respect, and it goes both ways. It really does. It goes both ways, and
well, Doc did this in Boston too, and I always felt like it became a disadvantage to the Celtics. He just takes bad calls really personally.
Yeah,
he gets very upset, and I don't know. It's almost like you guys should make a pact. Like, hey,
we've tried. I think Doc. We've tried almost every year. Doc made an announcement to the media maybe 6 weeks ago. So he got thrown out of 2 games. In like a 2-week period.
One of them he got super mad.
Yeah, yeah. And then so he you know what? I think he got kicked out of a 3rd game in November. It was in Brooklyn. Then he got kicked out against the Wizards.
Oh, yeah, you guys lost that Brooklyn game. I was mad because we had the Celtics have their pick. I was like, really? Did Doc get thrown out of this
Brooklyn
game to sabotage
playing really
our
well.
pick?
Yeah. Now they're 9-47.
Yeah.
I think you're all right.
Yeah, I'm okay.
But he made this announcement he just said I'm gonna cut back on the referees and if I do get a technical, I'm gonna give the money to charity. In addition to what already goes to charity, our technicals out of our contracts. Yeah, so he's going to double up. I think he's been better. I'm not really sure. I don't keep track of Doc's technicals necessarily.
He's not better,
but
he's not better at all.
I don't necessarily think it's the worst flaw of our team, but it's a flaw of our team.
It's become a bigger flaw because all the fans at the home games have now taken on the same kind of mental energy. And it's honestly no different than going to some of my daughter's soccer games and the parents on our sideline's good. Some of the parents on the other sidelines that are just, they think everything's a foul. And it's just this constant hysteria. And I've noticed it at the Clipper games. Like the fans, it's like, hey, the Clippers aren't going to get every call. It's going to go back and forth.
I think it's just part of the culture, though, of sports in general is just like
people losing their minds,
wanting to place blame on something.
Yes,
the refs were terrible. Like people will say that to me after games, and I'll be like, "Were they?
You're right.
Were they terrible? I don't know. I just feel like they made some calls. Like some were good, some were bad. Like how is that different from any other game? You know,
the 3-point revolution is just the greatest thing that ever happened. Like you might play till you're 48. How long? Because at some point, when you're going to be too old to just be running around screens all day, you could still just sit in the corner and just shoot threes, right? That's another 5 years of your career.
I don't know that I want to continue down that
Do
road.
Do it. Go to 48. I think Ray Allen could be playing right now.
So first of all, I never really imagined that I'd be doing this at 32. And,
right.
I'm in year 11. I'd love to get to 15. I'd love to get to 15.
You stay in good shape. That's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm a little too vain to ever get out of shape. So I stay in shape. I'm admitting that. But no, I'd like to get to 15 and then we'll see what happens from there. But I feel like I have 4 more good years in me and then we'll see how my body feels.
Has your game changed at all with the way the actual sport has changed? Or are you doing the same things you were doing 7 years ago? Is there any one thing that's changed about how you think about when you're on the court, spots you go to, or the flow of it, or anything?
Well, when I played for Stan, it was very pick and roll heavy.
Yes.
And so I was either doing one of 2 things. I was either spotting up in one of the corners, or I was involved in the pick and roll. And, I didn't get to run as much as like Turk or Jameer, but I did get to run pick and rolls. And now with Doc, it's more catch and shoot for me. But the one thing I stole this from Bradley Beal, and now guys are stealing it from me. But I call it the throw and go.
Yeah.
And so basically, you have the ball on the wing or up top, and you throw it to the big. And most of the time, you throw it to the big, and most guys stand or they go away, they go cut away and go screen for somebody. But I throw it to the big, and then I run right and get it. And so it's almost like a pick and roll. It's the same action, except I have a head start on my defender because he's not expecting it.
The throw and go.
Throw and go.
Bradley Beal.
I stole it from Bradley Beal.
Yeah, Bradley Beal is becoming a force.
Yeah.
And it's funny, there's not a lot of guys. Like, you could almost become the guru for these guys to teach them how to run around and do these little tricks, because the Warriors are obviously
Kevin
great
Garnett
at it.
had this whole conversation with me in the weight room like 2 weeks ago about how I should charge younger players in the offseason money so I can teach them my tricks.
I have somebody for you that
It was I was like, I'd probably do that for free, but
No.
He was like, $25,000 for a week. After one summer, you'll have an extra $300,000. I'm like, you know what? I feel like that's kind of cheating, but okay. I'll consider it.
I have the guy for you.
Who is that?
Malik Monk on Kentucky.
Oh God!
If you made a deal with him where you get 2% of all his future income, because right now Tate's hosts our college basketball podcast. Malik Monk, who I think has a chance to be really, really special potentially, but on Kentucky just stands there. They don't run him around on picks. Their point guard has the ball all the time, and sometimes he just disappears from the offense and he just stands there. And the key for him at the next level, because he's like a 6'3" shooting guard basically, but magical footwork and 25-foot range. If he learns how to do the circle, run around picks, the throw and goes, all that stuff, the guy's gonna be unstoppable.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't learn that stuff, I think there's a lot of guys like him.
You have to figure out, when you're a great shooter, you have to figure out ways to get your shot off in tight spaces.
Yeah.
And ways to sort of create that separation. And it's different for everybody. Certain guys like Clay is great in the catch and shoot, but what makes Clay so good is he's big.
Yeah.
He's 6'6". He doesn't jump particularly high on the shot. He's big. And so he's able to shoot over guys. Devin Booker's a little bit the same way. He's got some really good one-on-one moves, but he's a bigger guy, so he shoots over, 6'3" guards. Beal's like
the total package.
Yeah, he's a total package. He can play in pick and roll. He does the throw and go. Him and Wall have this great combination in transition where, like, literally Wall's throwing like 3/4 court cross court passes,
right?
And he's hitting Bradley Beal in stride for transition threes. Like, so he's a guy that kind of does it all. But yeah, it's one thing to be able to shoot and make shots, but you got to figure out how to do that in an NBA game with scouting and with guys in your shit.
The Wizards are on my radar because the Celtics match up terribly with them. They also have one trade to make, but the Beal Wall thing, they gave Beal that.
What's the seeds right now?
Celtics are close to Cleveland. They're like 2.5
2,
back.
and then Wizards are 3.
If you go like the last 2 months, the records, the Wizards, Celtics are like they're 2 of the top 3. But
that could be a potential second round matchup.
Yeah, and it's a bad one for the Celtics because they have nowhere to hide Isaiah against the Wizards. You can't put Isaiah on Wall. You can't put him on Beal. So you got to put him on Otto Porter or Oubre, whoever's out there, which is a problem if those guys can just shoot over him. And then they try to get him in pick and rolls to try to put him on Beal over and over again. And it's an issue. Do
the Wizards wear black to every game?
No, that was just that one.
Do they wear black to every game that series?
Well, the Celtics have assumed the Blake Griffin identity of they have all these feuds with all these teams now. It's like no matter who they play, there's bad blood with something that happened somewhere, and they love it too. So every time they play against somebody, it's like a playoff game now in the Eastern Conference.
I love it though, man.
It's good.
You got to figure out a way to have your edge. Like if that's what it is, if you have to create these controversies and these disputes to get your edge, then do it, man.
Well, you got to get that edge back against the Warriors.
Yeah.
The Clips, it needs to just be a very physical. We're not rolling over.
It's weird.
It's
weird, and maybe this it was like this in the NBA when when Jordan was playing. But I just feel like the last like 2 years, it all comes down. Can you beat the Warriors? Can you beat the Warriors? Whereas like 5 years ago, you always are going to have a handful of teams, 5 or 6 teams that have a legit chance. But it wasn't that one team where you're like, everything Cleveland is doing is can we beat the Warriors?
Right.
The whole conversation about us, no matter what we do in the regular season, no matter if we get to the conference finals or not, it's can we beat the Warriors?
Well, you came on my HBO show and you were saying like, I don't care that they got Durant. I still feel like our team is whatever. Have you changed your tune on that one?
No, I haven't changed my tune. I mean, I obviously respect their team, like in terms of the talent level, their ability. They're great. They're a great team. But this notion that NBA players are like scared of other teams or scared of other guys, like we wouldn't be NBA players if we were scared of other guys. We're not intimidated. I'm not intimidated by anyone.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't be
in college. In college, were you ever intimidated?
No, I was always just the shit talking, cocky little white kid. I mean, that's who I was.
That's why Tate didn't like it. Tate almost didn't come to work today. It was like, we got JJ Redick.
It was for Justin Gray. Justin Gray. He had a tough time with Gray.
Yeah, I love Justin Gray. No, I mean, dude, going back to high school, I played AAU for Boo Williams for 3 summers on the 17 and under team. I started playing with them when I was 14. And so I was playing against stronger, better players. And it just, I had to have.
Which one was Boo Williams? Where did he go? He went to one of those.
Boo? No, Boo played at St. Joe's in Philly.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't he have a March Madness cup of coffee where everybody got excited about him for 2 days?
No, I don't remember.
I vaguely remember. I've watched so many March Madnesses. They're all starting to blend into each other.
But,
do you know that Tate honestly believes that when Coach K doesn't like his team, he comes up with a fake ailment to leave the team for like 2 to 4 weeks?
I've heard this.
UNC fans believe this stuff.
I've heard this from a lot of UNC fans.
There's nothing like UNC versus Duke, right?
There really isn't.
There's like Yankees, fans, Red Sox used to be that way, but not anymore because we won.
The thing with UNC fans that always strikes me as weird is they have this great program. They've got a storied tradition. They've won multiple national championships. They've had, national players of the year. Jordan went there. Jordan played there. And
that was the big one for them.
Yeah. And yet somehow after all that time, they still have this inferiority complex.
Tate!
With Duke people.
Oh my God!
I cannot figure it out.
Tate's changing your audio now.
It's like, okay, like for Duke fans, it's like if UNC does well, like it bothers us a little bit.
I love how you're playing this.
But
this is so great.
But it was like, Duke's success drives UNC so crazy that they're willing to like create these conspiracy theories about Coach K.
Joe, stay between Tate and JJ. This is great. I mean, UNC's had to cheat a couple times to try to compete. No, I'm sorry, Tate. There's been academic scandals. Now we're just messing with Tate.
Did that ever get resolved?
You gotta look the other way a little bit on that stuff.
Reggie Bullock was my teammate for a couple of years. He said he never went to class. He said
he
just never went
my God, this is great.
And he played there 3 years, so I'm not sure how that worked.
I'm not sure how that worked. Do you still follow the UNC Duke stuff? Like, do you watch the Duke games like a proud alumni, or you don't care anymore?
I'm a proud alumni, but I don't get to watch as much college basketball as I used to. I watch Duke games, and that's pretty much it. I got to go back to the Duke UNC game a few weeks ago. It was my first Duke UNC game since I graduated. I've only been in Cameron 3 times since 2006, so it was my 3rd game in Cameron. Duke won. It was great. It was a great day. Went in the locker room afterwards and gave Coach K a hug and got to see him.
The Coach K JJ hug.
Speech.
Yeah,
he seemed strong. He seemed really strong. Of course you know this, but the Duke Hospital, the Duke medical staff is the best
great,
in the world.
Yeah. So, what's the most misunderstood thing about Coach K by the general public, in your opinion?
Misunderstood. Give me an idea about Coach K that maybe.
I think that he's an opportunist.
Really?
That tries to pretend that Duke is this bastion of academic whatever, but really they've been doing a lot of the one and done stuff that Calipari's done. I think that's a fair criticism. That he uses the Olympic team and his association with him as a major recruiting advantage, which it is, because if he's out with a recruit.
Explicitly or implicitly?
I think under the radar.
Yeah. Okay.
If he's with a recruit and the recruit's like, Kevin Durant's my hero. The only reason I'm doing this because and Coach K could be like, I have him on my cell phone. Let's call him. That's an advantage.
See, the problem with that is that UNC had a recruit a few years ago that wasn't as bright, I guess, and he publicly said in like an interview, he's like, yeah, Sean May called me the other day, and he was with Coach Williams, and UNC got in trouble for it. They did.
So that's a recruiting violation.
Right? Yeah. I can't remember who the guy was. Yeah, maybe Coach K tells all the recruits, "Hey, don't tell the media that I've got LeBron on the phone with you right now."
So it would be illegal if he did that.
I mean, they probably
Has he ever called you with a recruit? No. Or you never did it?
No.
You said call. You're talking about
text? Oh yeah, texting. What are the texting rules?
I've never texted a recruit. Never texted. Never called a recruit.
How much longer do you think Coach K has? I mean, I think he's over 70 now.
Yeah, 70 or 71.
But he's one of those guys, he always looks the same.
He does.
He's looked the same for like 40 years, like David Robinson.
When I saw him a few weeks ago, I was shocked. I was expecting, like, he's coming off back surgery. He's going to be – no, he looked good. He looked good.
Assuming he had the back surgery, right? Tate's not convinced there was a back surgery. Thinks he just went to Cabo for a couple weeks.
That's crazy. You know what? Going back to one of your points, though, like the one-and-done thing. So my senior year, the year I was drafted, 2006, was the first year that they outlawed or said high school kids can't come out. There was like a 4 or 5 year period there where Coach was not recruiting the one and done guys.
Yep.
And they won in 2010. It was with a really veteran team. They got kind of lucky because Kentucky didn't make the Final Four that year. They got knocked off in a previous round. I think that Kentucky team probably would have beat them. But he had to adjust. And so at some point he said, okay, I'm going to start recruiting these guys. And, he got Austin Rivers. He got Jabari Parker. And, of course, the 2015 with Tyus Jones and Okafor and Justice Winslow. So he's adjusted. And that's kind of what college basketball is now. And I think he takes as much pride in having those guys for a year as he does for having guys like me or Leitner for 4 years.
Have you talked to Austin? What was Austin Rivers' experience like? Because it didn't seem like that went as great as some other Duke one. Yeah.
They had like 6 or 7 NBA or guys that ended up playing in the NBA. And they weren't very good. And they lost the first round.
Not good.
Yeah, collectively not good. That was an interesting group. So I've been a Duke fan since '92,
right.
when Leitner hit the shot to beat Kentucky, and I kind of judge every Duke team, and I'm like a fan. I see how they interact with each other. I'm always texting Coach K, kind of getting updates on the psyche of the team or whatever, and that was it wasn't a good group. Just the dynamic of the group wasn't great. I knew 2015, I knew they had something. Like I was texting Coach all season, hey, you guys have a shot. You guys have a shot. I know you're young. I know you have a shot. And I was
the problem with college basketball is because you're throwing these guys together. A lot of times they're just passing through for a year. How do you know that the chemistry is going to be out there? They developed a relationship in AAU tournaments or in a Nike camp or something. Yeah. Where do you stand on this whole Grayson Allen thing? Because once upon a time you took a lot of shit.
Yeah. I never tripped anyone.
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying.
I did throw up the shocker twice, once at Maryland and once at UNC after big threes.
But Grayson Allen's like he's more villainous. Like he does stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know him at all? Have you talked to
him? I know Grayson. I got to spend a little bit of time with him 2 Septembers ago. I was at Duke for about 10 days and got to know him a little bit. And then I talked to him last spring before he was kind of deciding whether or not to go to the NBA or not. But like I don't know what he was thinking. Like I really don't. Like the trips.
I don't know.
The three times that he legitimately tripped someone. I have no idea what he was thinking. I mean, it was stupid. Since then, anything he does now is like, ESPN Twitter account will send out a 6-second video of him like trying to walk through someone else's huddle. Like I haven't seen him do anything. So I think he's got sort of a target on his back now, but he's smart enough that he's not going to do anything else.
That kind of scrutiny, if you can survive it, I would assume would be really good as a professional athlete. I'm sure it helped you.
Oh,
like all the shit you went through in 05 and 06.
There's nothing you can do like when you're 18 or 19 years old to prepare you for playing at Duke and going on the road and hearing 20,000 people literally at the same time chant "Fuck you, JJ." Like that's a weird feeling to have as a 19-year-old.
Did it mess you up?
Well, first 2 years at Duke, yeah, it did. It did mess me up. I created a persona on the court, and off the court, I went into like this deep, dark shell because I didn't know who I was. And you're still trying to find your identity just like any other college kid. Like,
right.
Who's not trying to figure out who they are at 19? And so, yeah, it took a little bit of time. But I would say, like, now as an adult, like, I don't – the shit that some NBA players worry about, what someone says on Twitter or what a media member writes about them, like, that's not even on my radar. I'm worried about so much other shit besides that. So I think it helped me develop thick skin. Actually, you know what? There's a chance that maybe that was already like a trait in me that kind of got brought out because of the Duke experience. If that makes sense.
Well, I think it would have been a more intense experience in the social media era.
Oh, God.
Because I'm sure for Grayson Allen, I don't know if he's on Twitter and all that stuff, but
I don't think I would have
clips and stuff like that.
I wouldn't have made it past my sophomore year at Duke if
you would have left, or you would have.
I would have been kicked off the team if I had done what I did.
Oh, you would have. You would think you would have gone after people on Twitter and stuff.
No. I would have gotten in trouble. Like
slow-mo shots of him.
Just like off the court. Like my first 2 years at Duke, I was probably more committed to being in a fraternity or acting like a frat kid than I was, being a Duke basketball player.
I made so many mistakes in college and bad personal choices. I can't even imagine what it would be like to also have that play out on ESPN and CBS and all these different places.
I was worried about like what would, somebody would post on like a UNC fan message board on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. And now kids, man, you do anything and it's on Twitter within 5 minutes and it's on ESPN within 30 minutes.
Quick break to talk about Squarespace. If you have resolved to take on a new challenge, like starting a business, changing careers, or launching a creative project in 2017, be sure to lock down your next move with Squarespace. It's used by a wide range of people and businesses, including musicians, designers, artists, restaurants. Allows you to create everything from a professional blog to a portfolio to which to showcase your work, or an online store where you can officially open for business. You even get a unique domain to set you apart in your field. And with Squarespace's award-winning templates, creating a beautiful website is a simple and intuitive process. Nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. And Squarespace's award-winning 24/7 customer support can help you with any problem, no matter how technical or trivial seeming it is. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code BS to get 10% off your first purchase, plus a free domain. That is BS is the code. Squarespace.com. 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace, make your next move and make your next website. And once again, SeatGeek, since we're here, don't forget, download the SeatGeek app today or go right to SeatGeek.com, especially for opera tickets if you're somebody like my mom. All right, back to JJ Redick. Quickly, as we were taping this podcast, we're taping it Tuesday morning, West Coast time. It just came out that the Lakers cleaned house and promoted Magic Johnson to head of basketball operations, got rid of Mitch Kupchak, and Jimmy Buss is going to step down. They got rid of some people internally, including John Black, who was like the gatekeeper there forever. Pretty surprising. Magic now is going to be running his own business. He is part owner of the Dodgers, and now he's also going to run the Lakers. Did you ever think the Clippers and Lakers would flip spots from a dysfunction standpoint? Because it's happened over the last 5 years. Dating back to the Chris Paul trade and Kobe hurting his Achilles, it's been a flip. But yet, I don't feel like it's been represented and the Lakers have way more fans in L.A. I'm sure you feel that.
Oh, they have way more fans. But
it's almost like the Clippers.
They've also won. Like, that's the biggest difference. So, if they go through a 5-year stretch like this, I mean, Lakers fans,
Even
no
30-team
Lakers
league
fans
is going to happen.
Worried. They're always, we'll be the Lakers at some point again. Maybe was it mid-90s, like between Magic retiring and them getting Shaq. Like there was like a 3 or 4 year stretch where they weren't very good.
True. It's weird to me that the Clippers, like there's times where they'll show a Clipper at Dodger Stadium and the fans will boo because it's very like if you're a Dodger fan, you're a Laker fan, and they have no. I got
wind of that. Chris took his son, and they put him up on the scoreboard, the jumbotron or whatever it's called at a baseball stadium. But they put him up there, and he got booed. My wife and I, she was like 7 months pregnant at the time. This summer, we went, and we were sitting, behind the dugout, and they're, in stadium entertainment, people came over, and they're like, "Hey, we'll put you on camera and put you up there." And I was like, "No, you're not. No, you're not." I don't want anybody to know I'm here.
Right.
I don't want to be booed. I'm just trying to enjoy the game with my wife and my future son. So yeah, no, you're not doing that.
Or the other move you could do is you put a picture on your cell phone, and when they show you, you just show the Clipper logo. You just kind of own it.
Yeah.
You get the crowd
own it a
fired
little
up.
bit. Yeah, maybe I'll do that someday. If we ever win a championship, I'll do that.
Let's talk big picture NBA. Boogie Cousins trade.
Mm-hmm.
Boogie Cousins and Anthony Davis together. I'm sure you have a game against them at some point this season. But just as somebody who plays basketball in the same league as this team, Boogie and Davis together, what was your reaction?
Skill-wise, I think it works. From a fit standpoint, I think they do complement each other.
Yeah.
Because both of them space the floor. I mean, and I don't think it's interesting. I don't think that either one has the ball in their hands for an extended period of time. In other words, they're not guys that are just going to hold the ball for 15 seconds or, when people talk about
like
those
Carmelo.
type of guys, like a ball dominant player, I don't think either one of those guys is that. They make quick decisions. They both shoot quick, or they move it. It's one or the other. So I think they fit well. Who's their two right now? I mean, do they have any shooting?
They have Drew Holiday and then a bunch of hodgepodge guys. Yeah.
So
it's going to be a process to, I think, build around them.
I don't know that it's like they're the playoff. I don't know if they're getting the 8 seed this year. I don't know that. I don't know. I have a Boogie Cousins story, by the way.
I was going to ask you if you had any Boogie Cousins material.
So my first son, Knox,
Yeah.
was a direct result of Boogie Cousins.
Okay.
My first year in LA, it was like the 15th game of the season, thereabouts, and we're playing in Sacramento, and I went up for an offensive rebound, and Boogie had already said something to me a couple times that game, and he gave me a little shove, and it kind of upended me.
Yeah.
So I fell and broke my wrist, and I was out like 6 weeks, and the next day the team left for like an extended 2-week East Coast trip, and my wife and I were really bored, and we just
all
were
of a sudden
kind
you
of
have a kid.
So, do you want to try to have a kid? And so, yeah, let's try. And we tried for those 2 weeks, and then 10 months later, we had my
Boogie
son
Redick
Knox.
was born?
Yeah, we debated about the middle name being like Marcus or DeMarcus or something, but we ultimately went with a family name. But I told Boogie this story. I ran into him in Cabo 2 summers ago. At Las Ventanas. We were on vacation celebrating our anniversary. He was there with his family, and I told him the story. And he actually appreciated it. He did.
Really?
Yeah, he appreciated it. He thought it was a good story. So, but yeah, my first son is because he gave me a cheap shot.
He's the best center in the league statistically. When you played Sacramento, how frightened were you of Boogie? Did you feel like you could get in his head? Like, what were some of the tactics?
I mean, he's just so all over the place that it's it's not like he's going to figure out a way to be demonstrative. Like, it's not like you're going to get in his head. Like,
True.
It's just that the world that is Boogie's world on the court is different from off the court, if that makes sense. Like, it's everything and everyone is against him on the court.
He never got along with Chris Paul. That was always like a little secret feud.
Yeah, that's been established, yeah.
Who is the best non-Warriors team you guys have played this year?
Best non-Warriors team we played this year. It's funny, we've beaten San Antonio twice.
Yeah, that was weird. I think because you guys are so guard heavy, and that's actually that's a method to potentially beating them.
Houston, we played without Chris and Blake. We've only played them once, so that's kind of tough. In the East, we suck against Toronto. I think we're 1-7 in my 4 years here against Toronto. Like, they just always beat us. The team I really like is Utah. And that's potentially a first-round matchup.
I was going to say, that's a 3-6 or 4-5 maybe.
And we played them really well because we've defended them well in both games we played them. But they're a team that I look at, and I'm like, they have the depth and the pieces. They can play a couple different ways.
Right.
Where they could potentially make a playoff run. Hopefully, it's not against us, but I like that team. And I like Quinn. I mean, Duke guy, of course. But I think he's one of the better coaches in the NBA.
There's a flexibility with them that I like, that they can go big or small. That's probably the biggest issue with the Celtics right now is as the trade deadline comes. Like, they have certain lineups that work, but then, if they have to get a little bigger, they don't have the right guys yet. And that's something that I think is a big advantage for you guys because you can go small with multiple guards. You can go a little bigger with Blake and DeAndre. You can kind of fit to whatever the opponent is, which I think is valuable. And honestly, like with the Warriors, their lineup is the best lineup, but they don't have the same flexibility they had last year with Bogut. They don't have that one lineup where it's like, we're bringing in our big dude, and, they're doing this, they're slowing it down, they're going to be super physical. All right, we're going to bring Bogut in.
But you've been pretty high on JaVale McGee lately.
Offensively. I think defensively he's, not even remotely close to Bogut in any way, shape, or form.
Bogut was great defensively for them.
I think
going back to Boston, when we played them recently on it was Super Bowl Sunday, we played them in Boston. Yeah. They didn't have Bradley and we didn't have Chris, but they were as good as anybody we played this year outside of the Warriors. For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, they were. It was interesting because I felt like the entire game, unless it was Isaiah dribbling into the paint, like they just had you so spread out.
Yeah.
I think they shot like 40-something threes that game. We shot like 12. I mean, it was just they just killed us because they just shot so many threes. And the way Isaiah is playing, they're tough, man. They're tough.
They've spent the last 2 years mastering that spread, just spreading out. And how can Isaiah get in the paint? And he's gotten better and better at it. Their shooting's a little better than it was last year.
Well, I think with Horford, you have to respect, like, he spaces the floor. He doesn't necessarily have to shoot 42% from three.
Right.
But because of the threat of his shot, he spaces the floor.
When they played Utah a couple weeks ago, they just destroyed Utah. And they took Gobert. And I think Gobert is really good. And it was one of the few times I've seen he's kind of lost. Like they were just pulling him out, trying to get him away from the rim. And you don't want Gobert 20 feet from the basket if you're Utah. And it was the first time I was like, oh. And that's when I was thinking with you guys, like, oh, this is if the Clippers meet them in the playoffs. This is something they could potentially do against Gobert that I think would be dangerous because you have multiple shooters.
Yeah.
You could put out 4 dudes. Austin Rivers.
Yeah.
So much maligned when he came to the Clippers. Doc traded for his son. What's he doing? I got to admit, I wasn't a huge fan of his game for a couple years. I think he's turned into a pretty valuable guard coming off the bench. Like I've been impressed. I think he's better defensively than people realize. Yeah. He's definitely an irrational confidence guy, which is good coming off the bench. But did you see this coming with him?
He's played the last probably 6 weeks as better than I could have imagined at this point.
Yeah.
I think at some point I could have seen him getting to this level. And this is what makes him a good player. He believes he can be even better. Like he believes he can be an all-star. People tend to forget, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever we got him, like he was like 22 years old.
Yeah.
He's 24.
He might have been younger.
He's 24 right now.
Right.
He does still have potential. He has more room to grow, but he's been one of the main reasons we've been afloat with Chris out. I mean, he's been unbelievable.
It's like I did a pod with Durant 2 weeks ago. We were talking about Deion Waiters, and Durant was saying like Deion Waiters honestly felt like he was the best guy in every game we played. Like he really genuinely believes
that too.
Yeah. That's not a bad quality for a bench guard because sometimes that's the guy who ends up winning Game 6.
Right.
In some random road game when everybody sucks, and then Austin Rivers like, I got this, guys, and he actually makes some threes. That could also shoot you out of the game too.
Well, he's done it in the playoffs for us.
Yeah.
Game 6 last year in Portland, him and Jamal, nearly pulled off the upset without Chris and Blake.
Yeah.
Game 3 against Houston 2 years ago, I think he had 25 in Game 3. and did the cooking thing. The Harden knockoff.
What's your take on him and Doc, the father-son part of it? Is he even a thought with the Clippers that that Doc is Austin's dad? Or is it just like you're so used to him as a player? I would imagine that's weird.
Of course it's weird.
Yeah.
Like if you go back to like when we were kids and like, coach's son.
Coach's
Special treatment.
son is pitching.
Yeah, coach's son is pitching again, He's 1-8 on the year. I don't know why he's pitching again.
Yeah.
But no, it was weird at first, for sure. It was weird at first. It was in the back of your head.
Yeah.
It couldn't be. But, Austin has earned his place without a doubt. So it's not something that is even discussed or not something I think about.
So I texted you a couple of days ago. I was saying you guys were 50-1 to win the title, and it was the same odds as the Wizards. And I was like, those odds are crazy to me. 50-1 seems that's like a throwaway. This team has no chance, and it's like I actually think people have forgotten how much talent the Clippers have, which is a nice place to be. You're under the radar, but if Chris comes back, even beginning of March, all that you have enough time to get him. Get everybody back, get everybody fits their spots. Am I wrong to think? I mean, I know you're going to be biased on this one. This question was way too long. Am I wrong to think that the Clippers?
I can't talk about Vegas odds. No, but
I know you can't talk about Vegas odds, but why don't people think the Clippers are dangerous anymore? Is my long question that I could have asked much quicker.
I think the easy and the short answer is what I talked about earlier, and that's just we've been terrible against the Warriors. So I don't think. Again, it comes back to that. So I don't think people could envision a scenario where we beat the Warriors unless Durant, Thompson, Curry, and Green are all hurt. It's just
right.
I mean, we don't believe that, but I think most people believe like if that matchup was ever happened in the playoffs, it'd be a wrap. They would win. Going back to what I was saying earlier about just like evaluating our team over the last 2 years with the injuries we've had. Like, it would be great if we could have like a good 6 weeks of good health and we could sort of figure out our identity.
Yeah.
Because to win in the playoffs, you have to have an identity. And it could be anything. But we have to figure out kind of who we are as a team and how we're going to play as a team.
Your identity to me is, I think Blake has to become one of the top 10 players in the league again.
Yeah.
Which is already a process that I can see happening. But you're going to need two guys playing at the highest possible level to beat that team.
Sure.
And you already have
Cleveland last year. I mean, Kyrie in the finals was unreal.
But you could slow them down the way Cleveland did. I mean, basically what Cleveland did was they just messed with the pace of the game. Everything slow, everything pick and rolls, and they kind of knocked the Warriors out of that happy-go-lucky, freed, awesome thing they had going. And all of a sudden these games are 91-87 and things like that. Yeah. I feel like you guys could do that, conceivably.
Conceivably, yeah. And I think Chris is the point guard that could do it because of the way that he controls the game. It's interesting that you say that because when I watch them play on League Pass, I'll watch a team and you can like attack them, where you're saying like, oh, we can score on them, and you'll get in these like high paced like really fast games, and it'll be like 54-38. The team will be up in the first half. It's a home game. Crowd's going nuts. Warriors are down, and I'm thinking to myself, this is just not the right way to play them.
Right.
Like, you're playing into their hands. The more if you think about it, the more possessions there are in a game,
the math helps them.
Yeah. It's the same thing when Miami, those guys were together with Bosh and D-Wade and LeBron. That's what Spoelstra figured out. Like, we have to play at a faster pace. We need to maximize as many possessions as possible where LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh are involved. And that's the same thing with the Warriors.
The Celtics had success against them last year with the three guards. They had Bradley and Smart to throw at Curry and really made him work. And then Isaiah is just a weird matchup for Golden State because they don't really have the shorter point guard to kind of deal with him, and they don't have the right guy. And I don't know, there's something to that too, spreading them out with multiple guards. But as you said, the more possessions you have, the math is going to work against you. Who do you guard against the Golden State? Because it seems like sometimes
Clay.
Golden State's they're trying to.
I guard Clay. Yeah.
And Clay, Game 7, I remember, which was a great game. That was one of the better basketball games I've been to. Clay, they're posting him up against you that game, but Clay doesn't really post up that much anymore.
No, that was with Mark Jackson. So they did sort of ISO a little bit more. Even with Curry, they would ISO him on the left wing at like 18 feet. They posted. I love Iguodala, but that series, they like the first 3 games, they posted Iguodala on me like 3 to 5 times a game. I think he was like 1 for 10.
That's great for you. Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like, you're taking possessions away from Curry and Thompson. This is great for us.
Yeah. That's why he's still on TV.
Kerr's thing is like, jeez.
Sorry, I'm kidding.
Kerr's thing is like, everything has got to kind of come out of the flow. Like he's not going to like go out of his way to like attack. They really just don't attack matchups. It's like just ball movement, and then we're going to move off the ball. The thing that makes them so hard to guard is like you've got action on one side with Curry, Thompson, or Durant.
Yeah.
And then the other side, you've got 2 of those guys too doing weak side action. So the defense is always occupied. It's really hard to guard.
And on top of that, anytime you miss a shot in transition, somebody's sneaking over here, somebody's sneaking over there, and they just get these 27-foot open threes that for 48 minutes you just have to not let happen.
When we played them like a month ago, we played them twice in a week. So the game you referred to earlier was our home game. We played them a week before that in Golden State. We got killed. But in the first half, there was like 2 plays where Curry and Thompson were on the wing in transition, and I was a guilty culprit of this too. I ran to Thompson, and Draymond just waltzed in for a dunk, or Durant waltzed in for a dunk.
You'd almost rather have that happen than the 3, right?
I mean, you hope everybody's back, but sometimes you just got to make those decisions. Sometimes
it's so funny how the sports change with that stuff.
Because
in the old days, they're just going for a layup.
We played San Antonio, I think 3 or 4 times last year, and Pop does this all the time. But like he'll just like, this is how we're going to play tonight. And it's totally different than the last time he played him. So like the first time we played him, I had a really good game. I had over 20, but I had like 15 in the first quarter, and a couple of it was in transition threes. And so the second time we played him, he was like, "Don't stop the ball." So like Chris, Blake, I think Jamal, like we were in transition. They first half they just kept laying the ball in 1-on-0 because it would be a 2-on-1 and Danny Green would run out to me. It was crazy.
Did it work?
I mean, we won that game too.
Okay, so Pop wrote that one up. Okay, that didn't work.
But no, it's like you got to mess with that. I mean, especially when it's Thompson and Curry, you got to make those decisions, and that's ultimately like when you play them. It's like a series of very difficult decisions that you have to make. It's like the lesser of 2 evils on nearly every possession.
Last thing, unicorns. So many unconventional young guys coming in. Who's been your favorite out of like Giannis, Jokic, Porzingis, Embiid? Any reactions to any of these guys? Because this is now turning into the freak generation.
Yeah. I love Porzingis, but there's something amiss in New York. I think we can all agree on that. And so I think that's kind of hurt him a little bit.
You're buying Porzingis stock.
But I like Porzingis.
Me too.
But of the other guys,
you wouldn't use him just standing 25 feet from the basket hoping he would get the ball?
He's so skilled.
You might want to post him up and run the whole offense.
You can use him
in
a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
It would be nice if the Knicks figured that out at some point over the next 5 years.
They will at some point.
They will at some point.
They will at some point. Giannis, I don't watch a ton of. I mean, obviously the way he plays is crazy. I think he is a unicorn, like just his body type, his skill set. Embiid is awesome. But if I had to pick between those Embiid? 4 in terms of who my favorite is, it'd be Jokic.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jokic momentum right now.
There is. There'll be backlash at some point. There always is. But
did you see the clip of him or the highlights of him destroying the Warriors?
Yeah.
He had like 17, 12, and 18 or some crazy game, and he was like Bill Walton in the 70s, like throwing these bounce passes. And I didn't see the Jokic thing.
It's crazy to me, as good as he was last year, that they did what they did at the beginning of the year. They wasted like 20 to 25 games trying to play him and Nurkic together, and then I think they benched Jokic.
Yeah, they didn't know what to do
for like a week or two, where he was getting like 5 minutes a game. And he's their best player by far.
The first like 10 days of the season, the Ringer's Kevin O'Connor is one of our basketball writers. It was really good. And I was like, I want you to write a Denver piece. I think they're the sleeper this year. Like, go watch their games. We'll have a piece. It'll look super smart in 3 weeks when they become the hot young team. And it went the other way. We wrote the piece, and they immediately shit the bed for a month.
Yeah.
And I was watching it going, man, I really like this roster, but they can't figure out who should. And then all of a sudden, they were like, oh, you know what? We should just play Jokic.
Yeah.
Just run the whole team through him.
I'm partial because he's my friend, but I like when Jameer's on the court too.
Jameer's been incredible this year.
I like when Jameer's on the court for them. They're good.
Jameer,
yeah.
I think, is he a free agent?
I'm not sure.
Jameer might have one more contract.
He keeps signing these 3-year deals. It's unbelievable.
When they signed, the last time they got him, I think the Celtics had him and traded him like a salary dump. Yeah, just to get rid of it. Hey, Denver, we take Jameer Nelson. We'll give you some money. It'll help us with luxury tax.
He signed with Dallas, and then like 2 months later into the season, he got traded to Boston, and then like a month later, he got traded to Denver, and then he ended up.
If I ran an NBA team, unless I had like the Chris Paul, like one of those guys, I would never spend money on point guards. I feel like the point guard surplus, like that Yogi Ferrell. I feel like there's 90 point guards who could give you minutes, and you look at like Jameer and all these guys. I would spend all my money on wings and shooters and bigger guys, and just feel like I could get lucky with point guards.
That could just be cyclical. It could just be how the game is played now. Like point guards now are different than not your Isaiahs and your Magics, but 20 years ago. I mean, Charlie Ward was like an above average starting point guard.
It's totally flipped.
It's not.
There's reasons for this. Like this year's draft, there's like going to be 5 more good point guards coming in the league, like elite guys.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like even at my position when I was coming out, like 11 years ago, I was like an undersized too. I'm 6'4". Like, that's that position now. Most guys are 6'3" or 6'4".
I hate the size thing. I've never understood
it's like
that.
all these guys that were like tweeners, the undersized guys, are now they're just ball dominant point guards.
I can't even believe that's a conversation anymore because of you and Avery Bradley and Isaiah and Draymond. It's like, why do we care if somebody's an inch too short?
It doesn't matter.
One thing I was thinking with point guards, though, and it's just a theory. I haven't really looked into this for 20 hours, but I wonder, like, you have 25 years of AAU, right? The best position, if you're playing AAU, you want to be the point guard because you have the ball all the time.
Yeah.
So the better athletes, the dads or the coaches or whatever, they're just putting him at point guard because that's the guy who controls everything. And now I wonder if if we're seeing the fruits of that now.
I think that's actually a really good theory.
It could be.
I really do.
I don't know if it's true.
Because even like when you, or at least when I was in high school, or when I still paid attention to scouting reports of high school players, like when there's a big with potential, let's say, you'll make a comment. They just don't get the ball that often. Like bigs don't get the ball.
It's miserable
in AAU, and if I also think guys that are guards and maybe are 6'2" and not 7 feet, like you're just more coordinated at that position, so you're able to develop your skill set a little bit more. So, could be just a little bit of Gladwell's 10,000 hours, where those guys just have the ball in their hands more at a young age. But
that's another reason.
5-10 years later, they're 22, 25 years old, and they're great.
That's another reason why big guys can shoot threes now. I'm convinced. So they're why post up? You're not going to get the ball. But if you shoot threes, you have a chance to get in AAU so and coming up. Yeah. Big guys like this is better for me. I'll get more shots if I could shoot threes. They just start practicing all the time. But like you look at you're not watching a ton of college, but Markelle Fultz on Washington, who's probably going to be the number one pick. So in a different generation, he's Allen Houston. Yeah. He's this guy. He's really good. He's a good three-point shooter, but he's really good, like 15 to 20 feet. He's got this little, gets his spot. He shoots high over his head, and it's Allen Houston.
He's bigger, right?
Yeah, he's bigger. He's got size. He can get to the rim. He's a 2-guard 20 years ago, and now he's a point guard. And, if you look at a team like the Celtics, like they would just play him at the 2-guard, but he has that point guard resume, and it seems like that's where all these guards are going. I don't know if there's specialists like you back in the day where you're like, that guy's a 2-guard.
Right.
That guy running my, and that's why Malik Monk is so interesting to me. That's why you need to take him under your wing. Just get like 2%. Oh, I forgot one more thing. Is KG really around the team?
Yeah, he's around the team. Yeah, but he's doing this. He's not just doing this for us. He's around some other teams too.
But KG, I mean, there's no bigger character in the last 20 years in the league.
Yeah. So he was with us on this last road trip we did.
Oh, no, really?
He came to like 3 of the cities. Yeah, he came to 3 of the cities, and I guess it was Charlotte. Yeah, I was in Charlotte after practice, and me and him just were like in the weight room together, and he starts giving me all these
stuff.
Yeah, just it's very cagey stuff. I'm looking at our strength coach like, are you listening to this right now? Like, this is where he told me like you need to take young guys under your wing and charge them $25,000 for a week.
I love that.
He also told me that he's like, how do you think Beyonce's in such great shape? I'm like, I don't know. It's like one time I saw her working out. She was doing her dances, and she was singing while she was dancing. So then I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should run and sing at the same time. So in the off seasons, I would go to Malibu. I'd go down to the beach, and I'd run to the beach, and I'd be like, la la la, la la la, la la la, while I'm running. So then when I get on the court, I'm getting back on defense. I'm talking on defense. I don't get tired. And I'm like, okay, there's maybe something there. But he told me some other stuff too. Like he told me like after the first game of a back-to-back, so in between games, that I should go run on a treadmill for 30 minutes and that I should lift weights. So I mean, KG, if you're listening, I'm sorry I'm giving away your secrets, but like I don't know if that's for me.
So KG would play a game
And go lift
and run on the treadmill and play the next day.
He said Worm. He saw Worm run on the treadmill one time. But he's like, you got to play like Worm, where you're like running around. You're an energy guy, so it might benefit you.
Wow.
I wanted to say I'm pretty sure Worm was on something. That's why he was able to do that.
Right. He was flying.
Yeah.
Do they talk about the Celtics at all, KG and Paul? Any war stories? Any Rondo? Nothing?
No.
Get that for the next podcast. Get some war stories.
Yeah, those guys, I mean, they kind of go off in their little corner and they're chatting to each other. But we haven't heard any
Paul hitting that 3 was amazing in Boston.
It was.
It was like secretly a super high pressure 3. The crowd's calling for him for the whole quarter. Yeah. He comes in.
Hadn't played since the first 3 minutes of the game.
That's a hard shot. It was almost like a fan getting called in to hit a half-court shot.
Would have been like a total dick move if because Isaiah Thomas was like the closest defender.
If he just jumped at him,
if he just like tried to strip it or jumped at him.
You know who would have
ran
done
him
that?
off the line.
Marcus Smart would have done that.
He
Marcus
probably
doesn't give a shit.
He probably would have.
Yeah, he would have done anything.
He gave me a nice shiner, man. I got 7 stitches from that game. Marcus.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Me in the eye. Yeah, I just got my stitches out a couple days ago.
You know, the Celtics fans, Marcus is like our dude.
I know.
That's our guy.
I know.
He's a fighter, man.
I know.
When you play the Celtics, you're like, oh shit, I got Marcus Smart. I got to deal with him today.
I respect guys like that.
Yeah, he's good. He
plays hard every night.
Well, I hope the trade deadline. I hope you get out of it intact.
Thank you, man.
I want to see this Clippers team stay together.
I would like to as well.
And then we can keep talking during the season. I'm here if you need.
All right.
Podcasts, talk about shit. JJ Redick, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to JJ Redick. Thanks to SeatGeek, our presenting sponsor. Don't forget, SeatGeek. Buy and sell tickets on your phone in just 2 taps. Everything is fully guaranteed. It is by far the easiest way I found to shop for the best tickets thanks to their revolutionary grading system. Download the SeatGeek app today or go right to SeatGeek.com. And please check out The Ringer. This week, we are in our sweet spot with the NBA. A lot of trade deadline stuff. A lot of good columns about the Boogie Cousins trade. The Ringer NBA show is going to be humming every day this week. And the trade deadline, I guess that's going to be my Friday column if something happens. I assume something is going to happen with all these chess pieces. And don't forget, Clippers 50-1, in case you love ongoing gambling. Nice little sneaky thing. JJ has no comment. We're back. We have 2 more podcasts coming this week on Wednesday and Friday. That are good ones. So until then.